In 1970, a glitch appeared in the Chinese national census. Not a digital error, but a biological one. As data flowed from the misty mountains of Guangxi, statisticians noticed a cluster of villages that defied the laws of modern mortality. In these remote communities, residents weren't just reaching 100 years of age, they were thriving there. No Alzheimer's, no heart disease, a near total absence of the cancers that were already beginning to haunt the industrialized world. Initially, the government suspected a genetic anomaly, a lost tribe of the long-lived. But when medical teams finally reached these high-altitude outposts, they found the secret wasn't in the blood. It was in the cup. While the elite in Beijing and the merchant class of Shanghai obsessed over expensive high-status green teas, these mountain villagers were drinking a daily infusion of a wild 5-leafed vine. They called it xiancao, the herb of immortality. To the modern botanist, this is Gynostemma Pentaphyllum. To the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry, it is a ghost. Science eventually caught up to the mystery. Researchers discovered that this humble vine contains the exact same powerhouse compounds ginsenicides found in the world-renowned Panax Ginseng. Yet, while ginseng became a symbol of status, Gynostemma remained the ginseng of the people. This isn't just a plant. It is a historical act of resilience. In the year 1406, during the Ming Dynasty, China was ravaged by crop failures. Rice fields turned to dust. The population faced a slow, agonizing starvation. Amidst this collapse, the scholar Zhu Xiao published the Zhu Huang Ben Chao, the Materia Medica for famine. This wasn't a text for royal physicians. It was a survival manual for the common man. Zhu Xiao identified Gynostemma not just as medicine, but as a lifeline. While the Ming emperors spent fortunes monopolizing and taxing wild ginseng roots, the people turned to the cracks in the mountains. Gynostemma was decentralized. It was wild. It was free. It provided the same stamina, the same clarity of mind, and the same protection against the fires of inflammation as the royal roots, but without the royal price tag. It is the botanical equivalent of a grassroots revolution. Today, we live in a different kind of famine, a famine of spirit and a surplus of stress. Our bodies are in a constant state of internal heat, what modern medicine calls chronic inflammation. Gynostemma acts as a biological thermostat. It is an adaptogen, meaning it doesn't force the body in one direction. It listens. If you are wired, it calms. If you are depleted, it restores. To integrate this ancient resilience into your modern life, follow the protocol. First source, the whole leaf, not a processed powder. You are looking for spring dragon or 5-leaf ginseng. Second, the infusion. Unlike delicate green teas, Gynostemma is hardy. Use water just off the boil and let it steep for at least 5 minutes. The flavor is unique, a deep, earthy sweetness that lingers on the back of the throat. Third, consistency over intensity. The villagers of Guangxi didn't drink this as a cleanse. They drank it as a ritual. 1 cup in the morning for metabolic fire, 1 cup in the evening to soothe the nervous system. We have spent centuries looking to the pharmacy for longevity, forgetting that the most potent tools are often the ones that grow in the shaded corners of a rural garden. Gynostemma is a reminder that health is not a luxury to be purchased, but a freedom to be grown from the ground up. If you value this kind of decentralized wisdom, consider joining our community. The path to longevity isn't paved with gold, it's covered in green. In 1972, a nationwide census in China revealed a statistical anomaly that baffled Beijing's officials. In the remote, mist-shrouded mountains of the south, they found pockets of extreme longevity villages where centenarians were not the exception but the rule. While the urban elite scrambled for expensive rare ginseng, these mountain communities were drinking a simple bitter tea brewed from a wild creeping vine. They called it the herb of immortality. But this wasn't a new discovery. It was a rediscovery of a ghost. 4 centuries earlier, the legendary physician Li Shizhen codified this plant in the Bencao Gongmu, the most significant medical text in Chinese history. He described it as a heat-clearing powerhouse prized by mountain tribes for its ability to treat the exhaustion of the spirit. In our modern tongue, we call this chronic inflammation. It is the silent fire that erodes the body from within. To the laborers and farmers who built the infrastructure of ancient China, this vine was the original performance enhancer. It allowed them to endure back-breaking toil while remaining inexplicably calm and focused. So, why did a plant this powerful vanish from the global stage? Why did it become a forgotten folk herb, relegated to the memories of mountain grandmothers? The answer lies in the brutal logistics of empire. During the Qing dynasty, the world became obsessed with a single currency, Camellia sinensis, the common tea leaf. This wasn't just a beverage, it was the engine of the Tea Horse Road, a trade network as wealthy and complex as the Silk Road. But the global economy of the 1700s was built on durability. Tea leaves are robust. They can be fermented, rolled, and pressed into dense leathery bricks that survive year-long voyages across salt-sprayed oceans. Gynostemma, by contrast, was a logistical nightmare. It is a delicate vine with a high water content. In an era before vacuum sealing and climate-controlled drying, it was impossible. The leaves would turn brown, lose their sweetness, and crumble into dust long before they reached a port city. The British and Chinese trade empires didn't choose the best medicine. They chose the best commodity. They conditioned the world to crave caffeine, a stimulant that drives industrial labor, rather than adaptogens, which heal the nervous system and repair cellular damage. While tea was centralized and commodified, Gynostemma remained wild, decentralized, and free. It was the ginseng of the people, too fragile for the market, but too powerful for the spirit to forget. Today, modern science is finally catching up to the mountain tribes. We now know that Gynostemma contains over 80 different gypenicides, molecular compounds nearly identical to those found in expensive ginseng, but in much higher concentrations. If you want to integrate this ancient resilience into your own life, here is the protocol. First, sourcing. Look for Jiaogulan, the plant's common name. Ensure it is wild harvested or organic, as this vine is a bioaccumulator that pulls everything from the soil, both good and bad. Second, the brew. Unlike green tea, do not use boiling water. Aim for 175 degrees Fahrenheit. Let it steep for at least 5 minutes. The flavor should be slightly sweet with a bitter finish, a sign of the active saponins working on your nervous system. Third, timing. Because it is an adaptogen, it does not shock the system like caffeine. Drink it in the late afternoon to blunt the cortisol spikes of a stressful workday, or in the evening to facilitate deep cellular repair. We live in an era of industrial exhaustion where our spirits are taxed by a world that never sleeps. We have been sold stimulants to keep us running while the cure for our heat has been growing quietly in the shadows of the mountains for centuries. You don't need an expensive supplement empire to reclaim your vitality. Sometimes the most profound medicine is the one the empires couldn't figure out how to ship. In the late 1970s, Chinese census takers stumbled upon a statistical ghost. Deep in the misty mountains of the Guizhou province, they found a cluster of centenarians that defied every modern law of longevity. These weren't the wealthy elites of Beijing. They were humble farmers, living in a landscape of harsh winters and lean harvests. The officials searched for the source of their vitality, expecting to find the legendary Panax Ginseng. But they found something else, a wild, creeping vine the locals drank as a bitter tea. They called it the herb of immortality. Today we know it as Gynostemma Pentaphyllum, but here is the irony. While high fructose corn syrup and chemical stimulants flow freely through our global food system, this ancient vine is caught in a regulatory crossfire. In 1997, the European Union implemented the Novel Food Regulation. It was a legislative wall decreeing that any herb not sold in significant quantities before that year must be classified as novel. To cross that wall, a producer must spend millions on pharmaceutical-grade trials. The result? A functional ban on nature. In many Western markets, merchants are forced into a bizarre legal charade. They sell the world's most potent longevity herb disguised as potpourri or decorative tea, often marked with a warning not for human consumption. It is the ginseng of the people treated like a dangerous newcomer by a system that favors the monoculture of industry over the garden of the earth. But the science is finally catching up to the wisdom of the mountains. Gynostemma is a biochemical anomaly. Consider the comparison. Panax Ginseng, the most expensive root on earth, contains about 28 distinct saponins, the compounds responsible for its healing power. Gynostemma contains 82. It is quite literally 4 times as chemically diverse as the world's most famous adaptogen. The real breakthrough came when researchers identified its effect on a protein called AMPK, the master switch of human metabolism. When AMPK is activated, the body stops storing fat and begins burning it. It triggers cellular repair. It flushes out inflammation. In a landmark 2014 study, participants taking Gynostemma extract saw a significant reduction in abdominal fat and body weight without changing a single other aspect of their lifestyle. It mimics the metabolic benefits of high-intensity exercise at a cellular level, calming the spirit while igniting the body's internal furnace. If you're looking to integrate this people's panacea into your life, follow this protocol. First, look for high-quality Gynostemma, often sold as Jiaogulan. Because of the regulations, you may find it labeled as tea for external use. Understand the legal context, but seek out wild harvested sources from the high altitudes of Asia. Second, for metabolic benefits, the research points to a dosage of 450 milligrams of extract daily, or 3 cups of strong tea. Finally, consistency is the key. Unlike caffeine, which provides a temporary spike, Gynostemma is an adaptogen. It builds resilience over weeks, not hours, slowly restoring the balance that modern life has stripped away. We live in an era where health has been centralized and commodified. But sometimes the most powerful solutions aren't found in a laboratory or a billion-dollar pharmacy. Sometimes they are growing wild in the mountains, waiting for us to remember what the ancients never forgot. Growing freedom from the ground up. In the late 1970s, Chinese census officials stumbled upon a statistical anomaly that shouldn't have existed. In remote mountain villages, they found a population of centenarians whose longevity defied every economic metric of the time. These weren't the elite. They didn't have access to the expensive gnarled roots of ginseng, a medicine reserved for emperors and the merchant class. Instead, they drank a tea made from a humble wild vine they called the herb of immortality. This is Gynostemma Pentaphyllum. For centuries, it was the ginseng of the people, a ghost in the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry that offers a radical form of health equity. While modern marketing pushes synthetic antioxidants like vitamin C, your body possesses a far more potent internal armory. Superoxide dismutase, or SOD. Think of SOD as a master vacuum, thousands of times more effective at neutralizing the oxidative stress that rusts our cells from the inside out. Clinical trials now confirm what the misty mountains of Guizhou already knew: consistent use of Gynostemma can boost your internal SOD levels by up to 20%. It doesn't just provide antioxidants, it commands your body to manufacture its own defense, lowering triglycerides and cholesterol within a single moon cycle. But the true power of this plant lies in its defiance of industrial agriculture. You do not need a laboratory or a deep pocket to reclaim this vitality. You only need a shaded corner and the will to grow. The protocol for the home gardener is simple. Gynostemma is a resilient perennial vine thriving in USDA zones 7 through 10, though it adapts readily to indoor pots in colder climates. Unlike ginseng, which demands 5 years of patient forest waiting. Gynostemma is an aggressive vital force. A single vine can stretch 5 feet in a single season, its emerald leaves reaching for any trellis or fence you provide. To begin, seek out true Gynostemma Pentaphyllum from heritage sources like Strictly Medicinal Seeds or Baker Creek. Avoid the nurseries that trade in lookalikes. The plant loves moisture and rich loamy soil, thriving in the partial shade where other crops might falter. It is a plant that wants to live. Every node along the vine carries the blueprint for a new life. If a branch touches moist earth, it roots. It is health that propagates itself through cloning, decentralized and free from the grip of commercial monoculture. However, discernment is your first line of defense. In the wild landscapes of North America, the poisonous Virginia creeper mimics the 5-leafed pattern of Gynostemma. Look closer. The true people's panacea has tiny, serrated teeth along the leaf edges and a subtle, hairy texture. The Virginia creeper is smooth, woodier, and bears toxic berries that have no place in your tea. Never forage near the chemical runoff of roadsides or industrial zones. When you grow your own, you are not just cultivating a plant. You are opting out of a system that commodifies exhaustion. This is more than a botanical, it is a quiet rebellion. It is the restoration of ancient wisdom, growing from the ground up, one vine at a time. In the late 1970s, a team of statisticians in China stumbled upon a biological anomaly. While conducting a nationwide census, they found a cluster of mountain villages where residents routinely lived past 100. These weren't the elite. They weren't consuming the expensive ginseng reserved for emperors. They were commoners. Their secret was a humble, wild-growing vine they called Jiaogulan, the herb of immortality. For centuries, while the empire's medicine focused on the rare and the costly, the people in the misty southern mountains were brewing a legacy of resilience. They called it the poor man's ginseng, but modern science reveals the irony: this vine actually contains a higher concentration of saponins than ginseng itself. It targets the AMPK enzyme, the master switch of your metabolism, regulating energy, inflammation, and cellular cleanup without the jittery price tag of industrial stimulants. But power demands respect. Because Gynostemma is a potent biological regulator, it is not for everyone. It possesses natural anticoagulant properties. If you are on blood thinners like warfarin or aspirin, or if you have a surgery scheduled, you must avoid it to prevent bleeding risks. Similarly, because it actively lowers blood sugar, those on insulin or diabetic medications must monitor their levels with extreme care to avoid hypoglycemia. For those with autoimmune conditions like lupus or MS, the herb's immune-stimulating effects could potentially flare your symptoms. This is history and education, not a prescription. Always consult a professional before rewriting your biological code. To reclaim this ancient vitality, the protocol is simple. Use 3 to 5 grams, roughly a teaspoon of dried leaves or a small handful of fresh ones. Steep them in 8 ounces of hot but not boiling water. Let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes. The flavor is a revelation, uniquely sweet with a subtle earthy finish. You can also toss fresh leaves into a salad or a morning smoothie for a raw enzymatic surge. To keep the body's adaptogenic response sharp, follow the traditional cycle. Consume the tea for 3 weeks, then take a 1-week break. This prevents habituation and keeps the master switch responsive. Modern industry thrives on your dependence. It wants you tethered to caffeine for energy-processed sugar for dopamine, and a pharmaceutical chain for metabolic survival. Planting Gynostemma in a shaded corner of your garden is more than a hobby. It is an act of biological decolonization.